Meeting to order. I hate special meetings. This is just a meeting. We are going to be adjourning into closed session. Ms. Glanville, could you please read the item for us? Thank you.
Item number 1 is conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2.
Thank you. We'll be going into the room next door, and then we'll reconvene in here for our regular agenda item. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? You can go to the board's agenda and find how to zoom in on this meeting. Okay, thank you. Let's go into the next room, gentlemen. I'd like to reconvene the meeting, please. And if you can, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Glanville, could you please read the results of closed session, our last two closed sessions today and last week? Thank you.
Yes. The report of closed session from October 13th, 2020. Item number 1 was conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, Calaveras residents against commercial marijuana versus County of Calaveras, Board of Supervisors of Calaveras County et al., Calaveras County Superior Court case number 19CV44446. There was no reportable action taken. Item number 2 was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, significant exposure to the litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. No reportable action was taken. Item number 3 was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. No reportable action was taken. Item number 4, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. No reportable action taken. The report of the closed session from today's agenda. Item number 1, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. There was no reportable action taken.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move to the item that's before us today and receive an update from the Calaveras Fire District's JPA, which I will refer to continually as JPA. Regarding the progress in completing the request for proposal to provide ambulance service and possible direction to staff with respect to the loan of county funds. In our meeting last week, we had a couple of agreements with the JPA. One was that there would be a guarantee of the loan in a bond or whatever form the JPA wanted, and agreement from the 9 fire districts in support of this. So if there's no comments from the board at this time, I'd like to turn it over to a chief.
All right, good morning everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you again. As you know, we've been working on this for months and months. Basically, this is all the work we've been doing. Our RFP to turn into Mountain Valley is completed, and we're going through that process. As you were aware of last week, we came to you with a situation, and that's sort of where we're at today. So our main reason for being here in front of you today is to respectfully ask if we can remove the requirement to have the bond attached to that $2.6 million. I can let Rich speak about that a little more, but we do not have the ability to do that for multiple reasons that we found out through multiple companies and agencies and stuff that we've spoken with about it, as far as the ability to do that and the legality. So that's really the primary reason why we're here today. We would like to continue moving forward in the process. Again, our RFP is complete and ready to be turned in for review with Mountain Valley. I'm prepared to make an oral presentation to Mountain Valley on October the 30th about our program design. I think that it's straightforward, a drastic improvement to the system, and I think that will be seen by Mountain Valley when we do our oral presentation. I think it's very tough for an agency to evaluate something that shows that we're going to double the amount of paramedics into the system and that we're going to save lives, and it's just that's the truth. I have some examples of the paramedic program that I started in Copper that I could tell you about. I think the positive PR from this would happen on day one. I anticipate there would be articles in the paper, we'd be in the news talking about the decisions that were made by the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors to allow this to go forward, and I can assure you that there will be lives saved. And I would look at this as probably my greatest professional accomplishment, second to the Copper paramedic thing. I've been in public safety for years. Our program is something that can be measured, and I know that there are hundreds of people that are alive today in Copper because of what we did down there. Within 1 week of starting that program, I personally can tell you that I saved 2 people's lives, and those people would have not lived if we did not have that program. I was on scene within 5 to 6 minutes on 2 of these calls. I could go in depth on that. It's pretty intense to understand that. I was waiting for an ambulance for 43 minutes coming from San Andreas as a person was dying on the side of the road, and I guarantee if I wasn't there to do that intervention, that person wouldn't be here today. That person lived, that person got into the fire department and is a captain at Copperopolis Fire right now. Those stories will be many to this Board of Supervisors. I mean, we have the moment in time here to do something great. I mean, just something great. And I can assure you, within the first week of doing this program, the media blitz on what will happen in this county will be amazing. You will have the support of your community. I guarantee you have your support now. We can ask anybody out there, if your loved one drops right now, at this moment, would you like to have an ambulance in 5 to 10 minutes, or do you want to wait for 30 minutes or greater? It's just that simple. It's a win-win. Sometimes we have to take a risk to do that. I don't feel there's any risk to this program. This is not like a normal business where you hope your business does well. We know there will be 911 calls. We know that ambulances have to respond to those calls, and we know the insurance companies will pay those bills. That money will be coming in. There's not a risk to that. There is no risk there. We know that. We can go back of data for years of what's happened in this county. That will continue to happen. I think there is a risk of not doing it because people will not be alive. I hate to take it to that point, but that's what will happen. People that would have an opportunity to live may not live, just basically on the fact that an ambulance will be delayed. So we want to provide that program. We also want to use the money that the state would give to a county provider to provide that service. We have that option of, by us just all things being equal, 2 companies, A and B, B company, us, has the opportunity, if we get in the business, of getting $1 to $1.5 million extra every year just because we're providing the service. If we do that, that money goes back into providing a better service to this community. I don't want to leave that money on the table. The state of California wants to give us that money. So we have an investment of $2.6 we're agreeing to pay it back, and however you guys want us to do that, to work with you on many different ways. We're open to any ways to make that work. We're open to oversight on a monthly basis, to sit down with whoever, to go over everything that's going on. And your agency, Mountain Valley, is going to make a recommendation to you. So it isn't like you have to make the decision. If they recommend that we're potentially going to be, or they recommend us to provide the service, that's a strong recommendation. The people that you pay to manage your EMS system here gives a recommendation for us to do it. That's a real positive thing. So I could go on and on about positive stories in copper. I can tell you that it's amazing what took place. I'm just going to say a couple things because I think it's important to be said. And me being in the business for 37 years, there's no question that bringing paramedics to Copperopolis is my biggest professional accomplishment. And the reason why I say it is there's people that are living in Copper that I know personally that are alive because we were there. It's just that simple. So our decision really, it does come down to life and death. And I know we throw those terms out all the time. We're going to decrease response times. We're going to save lives. But it is true. I guarantee I could bring 100 people in this room that we saved their life in Copper. I could sit them down right here and tell you that these people are alive today because of the program down there, because they couldn't wait for 30 minutes for an ambulance. So, one, like the guy that was dying on the side of the roadway, he couldn't breathe. His airway was obstruction. His mouth, he got ran over by a semi-truck. And if I had to put a tube down into his lungs and started breathing for him, he would not be here today. He would have died in 4 to 5 minutes of me getting there. Another person having a heart attack in his house. I got there in about 5 minutes. I looked at him. He's having trouble. I throw him on the heart monitor. I give him nitroglycerin. I give him aspirin. His heart goes into a rhythm that has to have immediate intervention. It can't wait for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's a rhythm that I needed to shock him. He was conscious and alert and looking at me with fear in his eyes, knowing that he was dying. I'm telling him what I'm getting ready to do. I said, this is going to hurt, but it's going to save your life, hopefully. And I can tell you that procedure I've done probably 100 times in my life, and I've never had it not work. He's in that rhythm. Ambulance is 35 minutes away. I shock that person. He gets mad at me, and he feels better. And he goes back into a normal rhythm. I continue to give him medication that keeps his heart in that normal rhythm. That would have not happened if I wasn't there. That person would have died right there. I could go on and on about these stories just about me personally in the first month of providing service over there. We have the opportunity to do that here with a much greater, vast amount of service in this county. There will be places that you will get so much support from your constituents that they're going to go, wow, there's an ambulance in Mountain Ranch. This is amazing. We've never seen an ambulance here before. We have a paramedic unit in West Point. This is interesting. We've never seen that before. There's a paramedic unit in Murphy's. Wow, we've never seen this before. There's an ambulance in Copper. That's a big deal. I know Copper has paramedics, but an ambulance down there makes a difference of getting someone to a trauma center in what we call the golden hour. They won't have to be waiting for an ambulance to come for 30 minutes away. They won't have to be waiting for a helicopter. They can leave and be to the valley in 28 minutes and have that person in the trauma room in under an hour. That's going to save people's lives. So we're really talking about, wow, we want to do this investment, or there's a risk. The risk is not doing it. That's the risk. We have an opportunity to do something great here. And I can tell you that I will share the praise with this Board of Supervisors on every press release that I do, because your decision, if we're allowed to go forward and we get approved by Mountain Valley, and I'll share these same stories with Mountain Valley when I go there on the 30th, and it's going to be hard for them to make a decision to say no to a system that they know is going to provide more paramedics and more ambulances, and we're not about profit. We're not about just meeting the standard. A private company just has to meet the standard. Whatever is out there, they have to meet the standard. If we own a company together, we're going to meet the standard, and we're going to take our profits, because we only got to meet the standard. We have no desire to meet the standard. We're going to exceed the standard, and every bit of revenue that continues to come in from this program will be put back into your county, for your constituents, for your people to live. You're going to have stories. I'm telling you, they're going to come in here and they're going to sit here and say thank you to you. Thank you. This is my grandma. She's alive because of the decision that you made. On the same, it could be the opposite. That's really deep, but it's true. You've got to have so much positive stuff. People are going to be so happy. And you guys want to talk about getting support from the community. It's going to be amazing. In Copperopolis, when I designed this program from scratch, it was all me. Everybody said, no, it's not going to happen. No, you can't make it happen. No, no one's going to back you. The county won't back you. The fire department's not going to back you. Cal Fire's not going to back you. The ambulances aren't going to back you. But the people wanted to do it because they were tired of people dying in copper, taking 35, 40 minutes, an hour sometimes for an ambulance to get there. So I designed a very creative, out-of-the-box program. We were able to get money. There was a private person that wanted to help us out. Luckily, in that case, we had much more time to set up the program. A little bit different here. I was able to get a grant to start the program for the first year. There was no way we were going to get funding for the second year. Everybody, no way, not going to happen, not going to happen, not going to happen. But the community saw what took place in that first year. And when I went out to pass a measure to help fund that measure won with 78% of the vote. We know that's unheard of. 78% of the people, because they saw it, they saw what happened, said, we can't let this go. We want this to be funded. And that program is still in place today because of that. For 20 years, I can only imagine how many people's lives have been saved. So with that, respectfully, where we're at from a legal standpoint and trying to get money to secure that loan, there's just no way for us to do that. And Rich can speak to you about that in more detail if you guys need to hear that, but that's just the bottom line. That's where we're at. So we're asking for you guys to make an investment in the community to save lives, which will happen. We're asking for that. I know it's a deep ask, but I would never have a problem. Let's just say something happened and, you can tell anybody, we did it for this reason. It got recommended by Mountain Valley. And I don't think there's any negatives, and I don't understand the risk. And I would be willing to talk to anybody about what you think there is a risk on of us not making, what we're anticipating doing. It's been vetted over and over and over by multiple people. It's going to be vetted again by Mountain Valley EMS. They're looking at it, and we'll just see how it goes. So basically, that's where we're at. We're asking for a way that we can have that stipulation removed from the 2.6. And I can tell you, we're willing to work with you guys on any creative ways to do it. However it needs to be. If we haven't thought of it yet and you guys have an idea, I'm okay on that. Today is not the drop dead date, but I have to know by the 29th. Because on the 30th, if we don't have a way to secure that, I need to respectfully pull out from the RFP process from Mountain Valley. It would be terrible for us to continue through that process, get awarded the contract, and then not have the money to provide it. That would be the front page of the paper. That would be bad. That would be a political nightmare for all of us. I don't want to go through that. So really, that's probably the date. I wish we could sit around a table and have a discussion in a less formal environment to put our heads together to say, how can we do this so everybody wins and we decrease that risk? The community is going to win, and there is no risk, in my opinion. So with that, we're open to whatever respectfully you guys would like to talk about to hopefully help us continue in this process. Because I think we're going to win the process at Mountain Valley. I think it's going to be hard for them to say no, just strictly based on the improvement to the system. And I think they're going to be impressed knowing that the money is going to go back to the community. They're going to know that we're going to get another $1 to $1.5 million annually coming back that would not go into a private company. And they know that that's going to improve care to your constituents. So with that, I'm willing to take any questions or refer stuff to Rich or Mike.
Mr. Stopper?
We'll go from there.
Jack, how does...
Oh, I'm sorry,
On
Mr.
first.
Garamendi.
There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions to start off. And the first one is to the chiefs. And first off, I want to thank you all for being here. As you know, I advocated and make sure that you guys could get as part of this RFP process back in the summer. And I do not question the validity of your assessment. I believe you'll save lives, and I have no expertise. In fact, I'm willing to argue nobody on this side of the glass has any expertise to really be able to evaluate whether your business plan is good or not, and certainly not your experience. So I'm just sticking to business here. I get the life-saving, I understand politics, but that's not what this is about. This is a business meeting. So let me ask you a question. When we were just in closed session, we were talking about a couple of stipulations. One is the one that you just talked about, the bond, a performance bond, and not being able to achieve that. The other one was getting all the JPAs to sign on. Are we unable to do, is that still on the table, or are you unable to do that?
No, every single department has signed on to this.
Every single JPA has passed a
Correct.
resolution?
We have all.
Excuse me, every fire district?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Then my second question is really a yes or no question to Ms. Ms. Edwards. And I know no attorney likes a yes or no question, but have you identified a legal mechanism in which to make this loan to the JPA possible?
No, Supervisor Garamendi, I'm unaware of an express legal mechanism for a direct loan from a county to a JPA.
So we have no legal mechanism to provide this loan to you as it's currently structured. I just want to make that very clear before we begin going down the rabbit hole, that if we do this as we've currently structured, we have no legal mechanism to do it.
And I understand what you just said. I get it. But I think that there's a way that all of us here, there should be a way to figure out how we can do it. Maybe it's not through a loan. It could be multiple. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I know there's like 20 ideas in my head.
I understand.
But I would hope that we could do that.
And Chief, that may be where we're going, but I'm not evaluating the validity of your fire program, and I'm not acting as if I'm an attorney working for the county whose
I understand,
expertise
sir.
is in local government. So my counsel has just told me that we don't have a way to make this loan. I just told this board.
Mr. Stopper?
Miss,
Just a moment, Chief, just a second. Go ahead.
Miss Edwards, is there a legal course for us to make a loan to special districts such as the fire districts?
Yes, Supervisor Stopper, there's a chapter or division of government code which does provide for loaning from a county to a special district, specifically including a fire district, via resolution.
At that point, could there be a possible link to those, each individual district getting that loan and then proceeding to bring it into the JPA, possibly?
Possibly that would be between the districts who formed the JPA and the JPA itself.
There's also a stipulation in there that 85% of the assessed taxes that each one of those gets is what the total amount alone can be for over, I believe, a cumulative for 2 years, I believe off the top of my head. Also, I think that knowing that $2.6 million doesn't really fit within that 85% on a 2-year assessed loans. So I'd be curious, so my question would then proceed to you, sir. Understanding how you put it together with it on a 2-year, the lion's share of what your investment from the money you're asking to borrow would be used up in the first year when it comes to equipment and getting you through the first 9 months. So you say you have a business plan done right now.
Yes.
What's that cost on the first 9 months or a year?
I would have to reference that. I don't know if I have that exactly right here. That was in the RFP, I believe, as well. Let me see if I have.
I'm just gonna.
I would have to look that up.
I'm stretching to try and make something work for you guys here, and it's a stretch right now.
I appreciate that, sir.
Okay, so, with the understanding on the 85%, none of us know what the assessed taxes across there, but I assume that, with the meager earnings that all you gentlemen get, which I'm sorry it is that way, that 85% would not cover the 2.6 million. So my personal perception is we would have to stage that out to the districts, so then they in turn gave it to the JPA, each district, over multiple loans in a fiscal year. Now, one thing that's kind of nice here is we're in our first fiscal year right now. Supposedly you won't be starting this till March, so we could do the first initial loan and then a second initial loan July 1st possibly. And that way we could segment out the first year portion. I mean, I'm really stretching here because I'm trying to find a legal way, that we can do this for you. Because I want this to work, but at the same time, we're literally, we said it to each other before, we're turning ourselves into pretzels trying to make this work for you guys, because we know your heart and your soul is in the right place, and I don't think there's a person here that doesn't support you. But that's my suggestion, the only way I can see us to do it legitimately, so I'll leave that at that point for right now to the rest of my colleagues.
So as I understand it, you'd be asking, or we would be asking the fire districts individually to guarantee the loan. And they would have to agree to that.
To ask for it. We'd loan to the fire district.
We would loan to the fire districts,
We'd give the money to the JPA.
and they would give money to the JPA.
Yeah, obviously, we're open to any way to make this work. I don't know if we all know how that could happen right now here, but I do think there's probably some creative way that it can be done. I have ideas potentially about how to do that as well. I think there needs to be a work group or discussion in a different setting where we can have a discussion and throw around some ideas, maybe.
Well, Chief, we have to do it publicly.
Right, I
We
understand
can't-
that. I do understand that. I understand that portion.
And in budget cycles, we have to have 4 votes. But I think what Mr. Stopper's saying is, and then listening to what council said, we can't legally do it the way we thought we could a week ago, but we could do it to the fire districts. Would the fire districts be willing to guarantee this?
Yeah, we would have to have a special meeting rapidly with all the JPM members to have the discussion that the money would be funneled to the districts and then from the districts back to the JPA. Again, if there's a will, I think there's a way, and that's what we're hoping for. Some ways to do that. I don't see it being a problem as a pass-through from the districts to the JPA. I am concerned about what Mr. Stopper said about the money, the amount, and how that would work, and the percentages, and I'd have to look at that and crunch that. But again, we want to make it work too. And you guys know we have made multiple adjustments. We originally were talking about 3.5 million. We were able to get that down to 2.5, and I think that was because that might have been the operating costs for the first 8 to 9 months, is how we were able to do that, and knowing that revenue would start coming in at that point. So, yeah, I think that's a move forward. I understand the legality. That's the same thing that we ran into when we were trying to secure the money. They're like, wait, you want us to secure money that's being loaned to you from another public, and it was just like, wait, that's not how it works. So we ran into that. Basically, that was it. It wasn't a legal way for us to secure the money. There was a couple options that we definitely would not bring to this meeting on some ideas that were floated. But yeah, so I do believe that with a meeting with the JPA group, understanding that the money, however much it is or how it would be set up, would have to be funneled through the districts to the JPA, I think that's a possibility. Do you guys have a comment on that? And we understand that, and that's, there's other ideas here that if we'd had more time, I think we could have structured it differently. And it's tough having, the JPA is great having one JPA, but having all those people involved in all that all the time, that's a tough situation too. It would be nice if there was a way to do it through one, and I think we could have came to an idea or agreement of maybe creating a district, an EMS district or something, at some point. And that might be the way to do it in the future, I'm not sure. But I respectfully appreciate the willingness to try something. Did you have something you want to say?
Just,
I have a quick question. I want to make sure you understand what Supervisor Stopper is suggesting, as I understand it. First is, each of the districts in your JPA are going to have to secure this loan with their tax base. There's a lot of districts that might have a hard time with that.
Okay.
And that's it. I want you to understand
Sure,
what
okay.
he's talking about, because I don't want to start going down a rabbit hole
Okay.
that we're not getting to the
Got
end
it.
of.
Okay, so with that being said, we're really back to the first point, is that for us to secure that money to you guys is going to be extremely difficult. I mean, I think that's extremely difficult. As a new GPA with no assets at the present time, that's why we can't go to a bank and say, hey, we got a great idea. They go, that's a great idea, but you have no assets. I think it'd be very difficult for each, and when we started this program, when we were working on this, one of the main reasons why it was set up to work the way it is that the districts did not want to have risk. Okay, they already have enough risk. We know that. So I think if they have to be liable for the money or sign off for their securing that money, that's going to be very difficult. Very difficult. And again, that's really the main reason why we're here today, is to, if we can get the money in any form, any way it is, we need to take off that security portion of it, because I don't think we have a way to do that. So asking for you guys, understanding that's unsecured. I mean, basically, that's sort of how that would be. I don't see it happening a different way. Now, either one of these gentlemen can talk on that, but we're asking for you to have faith in that, knowing that, again, there's going to be 911 calls, there's going to be ambulances responding, and they're going to pay the bills. It's been going on for years. It does nothing but increase and increase and increase. So that money will be coming in no matter what. You guys can have oversight over that. You know that's going to happen. I don't see a risk there at all. Plus, there's another $1 to $1.5 million on the table from the state of California. So on a $2.6 million investment, there's 1.5 on the table coming in from the state of California to help us with that.
so what I hear you saying is if we guarantee the 2.6, and after you got the contract, you get 1 point, whatever you said, 5 right away?
It comes in quarterly after we start providing the service. We get monies that the private companies don't get from Medicare and Medi-Cal, and that money will go back into improving the system. And that's why when we were talking originally with my original stuff a couple meetings ago, there's a high probability that 2.6 could be paid back in the second year in full.
So is that money from the state from Medicare, or is that a grant? I
It's
thought,
going to be money for billing from Medicare and Medi-Cal,
oh, all right.
which the
I
private don't have the
misunderstood.
opportunity to get. And that's, conservatively right around $1 million.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mills?
Yes, good morning, Chiefs. Appreciate you coming back, and I also appreciate your passion on this issue and the diligence that you put into it. Chief Urba, you already said the JP has no assets. That kind of is creating a little bit of conundrum for us, and that there's no legal means by which a JPA could receive the loan. So it really is going to come back to, and I would support a loan to the districts, but then again, how do you get all those districts to agree to that kind of risk in the environment that you're in right now? The amount has to be within the limits that are defined by code. Now, the next question is, what is 85% of your tax base? And we need to know what that number is, and maybe it's not even close to the 2 point
Yeah, it
that
would
we
depend.
need. So,
There are departments that have much larger tax base. I'm thinking about it in my head right now. But again, asking them to take the risk, I mean, obviously I'm going to try to market it the same way to them.
Correct.
The likelihood of having all 9 districts do that when at the very beginning of the reason why we set up the JPA was to limit risk to individual agencies and departments. I think it's going to be a tough ask. Now as far as assets go, there's something that should be understood as well. Obviously, if we are successful and recommended and we figure out a way to do it, we will have assets pretty quick. I mean, you're going to have $1 million worth of ambulances. You're going to have $500,000 worth of advanced life support equipment. That's capital. So that first purchase, when we start doing that, let's say we're buying stuff for $1.5 million, in theory, then you have $1.5 million of assets. So, I mean, you have the ambulances and the ALS equipment, heart monitors, $100,000 a piece, rigs that are $250,000, $100,000. So there will be assets. It isn't like there won't be any assets, but we don't have them at the present time.
I'm just trying to work through the structure
Sure.
of how this, if it was to be a loan to the individual districts. I'd also like to make it very clear that there's going to be no one from Calaveras County in the review of these proposals. That's the way it's going to happen with Mountain Valley.
I'm not sure who the review board is.
But the point is,
Not privy to that. That's
no
an
one,
outside agency that will look at our
yeah,
product and make a
totally
recommendation.
outside, no one from
Correct.
Calaveras County is going to be involved in it. So again, we're coming back to, if we were to do a loan, how would we do a loan to the individual districts rather than the way that we had, as a board, agreed to do it before, which doesn't seem to be the way it's going to work.
Right.
So that's the real conundrum here right now.
And maybe a loan is a bad word.
Oh, you just want us to give it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We can't
again,
give public funds first.
Yeah, I mean,
And number two, I've had this discussion, and it's going to be a loan. It's just how and where we can do the loan. So, look, I mean, we would love to help mitigate each individual fire district's issues, but this is the only clear path, and I don't even see it being a clear path. It's borderline gray still.
Yeah, I agree, sir.
It was what I suggested, and I mean, and it's the best intent of the board, I feel, from everyone. Even when we're talking to you hard about the situation, that we do want this to work out. But if we can't make it work out within that 85 percentile of what the assessed taxes are between all those, and there's different ways to go about doing it. That's why I was saying March is like, you're going to be spending a lot. Right now you told me you're going to need to spend $1.5 million prior to March if you get this RFP, right?
Correct.
So the first loan in the vicinity of $1.5 million working forward, and then the second part of the loan could come right away afterwards in July, and I'm really trying to wrap my head around this, trying to figure out as we're moving forward and discussing it right now. So, in all honesty, what do all the districts' total assessed taxes add up to? What's 85% of that? And does even $1.5 million fit into that?
Right.
And that's going to tell you whether we can even get close to doing it legally right
And
now.
then you want each individual department to secure that money.
That's a decision for the board and a discussion that needs to be had. Sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
No, I know, but you made a good point, and that is that what we need to be looking at is how many, if we could get 6 of the 9, 5 of the 9, but that the total assets meet the requirements that we're looking for here. We just need to meet those requirements. And how you structure the pass-through into the JPA for the funding is between you and your individual districts.
Right.
That's nothing that we're going to be involved in, and you will be subject to audit on it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If it might be helpful, Board, I'm happy to read that relevant provision of government code, just so that we all are on the same page and know exactly what it says. Um, it's Government Code Section 23010A. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by its Board of Supervisors, a county may lend any of its available funds to any fire protection district, amongst other districts, located wholly within the county, if its funds are or when available will be in the custody of the county, in order to enable the district to perform its functions and meet its obligations. The loan shall not exceed 85% of the district's anticipated revenue for the fiscal year in which it is made or for the next ensuing fiscal year, and shall be repaid out of that revenue prior to the payment of any other obligation of the district.
Thank you.
Can you repeat that last section of lines? So prior to any other obligation, so it needs to be paid back before compounding the loan?
Right, so the way I read it is that we would essentially be, the county must be repaid by each district prior to the district paying any other obligations.
You take it first.
Okay. Chief Dickerson?
Yeah, thank you for your time. I know how much you've put into it along with us. It's been a very arduous process. At the end of the day, no matter what happens here, it's just business. You're doing your business, we're doing our business. Unfortunately, it's about saving lives, it's about adding in the community. But when I went for the bond, Jocelyn Kirk, who is locally in Valley Springs, she was very good on educating me because I didn't understand the bond. I didn't understand the difference of the private sector and the public sector. But she basically ran it across the United States for her underwriters. And because we are a JPA, because we don't have, as John Madden would say, no there to there, it created a lot of red flags for the bond, I'm going to say bond industry. She was telling me that you could definitely go overseas and get a bond that would be not, that she would be approval of, and that's not what we want. But I just want to say a couple things before we make our final decisions. She gave me 2 pages of email that I forwarded to Mr. Alt, and basically what I said, well, what about if I did it with our fire district? And she goes, well, what do you mean? She goes, can you give me your financial statements? I go, absolutely. So I gave her, for 2019, I gave her our financial statement. She wrote back immediately, wow, I wish the private sector could do what you just did for me, because we all on fire districts get audited every year. That's part of the requirement of being a district. And I didn't have that when I was in Fremont. So there was a lot I needed to be educated on how that works. But she comes back to me and says, you're very healthy, very healthy. And I think that we can push this back out to the underwriters and we might be able to get somebody to help you out. They came back and said, sorry, we can't help you because your net worth. And here's the problem that I have sitting on this side. And what really frustrates me with mutual aid, and I had some buddies in the Bay Area telling chiefs, you need to do everything you can, send everybody that you possibly can to help what's going on in the state of California. Well, here's a chief's perspective. That's great. Why don't you pay me instead of me paying my dime? Me sending my engines. I got guys going headed right now to New Mexico. I got others going to Utah on my overhead teams. But I put all this money up front in a tune of about almost $650,000 that I am out right now. And I'm not going to get paid till January. If I'm lucky, maybe February. 2 years ago in 2018, I didn't get paid till March. That's not fair to me. You're asking for mutual aid in the system. The feds are asking for help. The state's asking for help on the district's dime. And at the end, if I do that, yes, I make some money off that. And that's what keeps the districts afloat. So going back to this, why am I talking about this? Unfortunately, my net worth right now is not good. I'm down from where I was in July of about $1 million. Now I'm down to about $268,000, okay? And I gotta wait for this money to come in. So if you're gonna ask me to, you give me the loan and then I'm gonna secure it, I don't think I can. I don't think with all of us, with what we all have out right now throughout the state, what we spent in our savings account, which we're not allowed to have savings. That was another tough one. I learned it when I worked in that other department. Whatever you made, you spent. You know, we weren't allowed to have a savings account. We're public agencies. So, you know, I'm going to add one more, and then I'm going to sit down, and again, it's just business, but I got 9 board members. I got 9 tough board members, and I got 9 board members to agree to spend $130,000 to float the bond. I got 9 board members to agree that if we get ALS transport, if we were to get the RFP, I currently right now have a relationship with American Legion Ambulance. They rent my firehouse at Company 1 that's been closed. I don't think it ever was open, but at one point it used to be a volunteer station. They're paying me to rent that station. So I'm willing to give up, or let me rephrase that, my board and I are willing to give up an annual income of about $20,000 because once we get this, if we win this RFP, we're going to give that for free. The idea is to put it back in the system, as Chief Roboth said. So I'm taking a lot of risk, more risk than anybody else in this room right now, because I'm going to lose money. I'm going to lose money, but at the end, I'm going to provide a better service to the community. At the end, all we're asking is somebody has to throw some pixie dust, and you've heard me say this over before, our way so we can start. And every business in the United States has to have somebody, when they start up, to believe in them, trust them, that they can start up and do this service. This will never happen again. I came from Fremont. We had paramedics on every engine company, and in Jim's magazine, go back to 1986, they proved that in Fremont it was the safest place to live because a paramedic was going to be at your house before 5 minutes to take care of you. We here, I'm tired of hearing about, well, this is a rural area. I'm sorry, but this area is growing like crazy. And what's going on in America right now, I think it's going to grow more. I think people are going to get out of where they're at right now, and they want to have a better peace of mind living in what we're calling rural America. So for us on this side, it's forward thinking. We have to have forward thinking. We have to have a roadmap for success. In today's world, to me, to not have the proper care for the people in the community, I can't stand before you and say that's okay. I want it to be the best for all of you. All of you deserve, when you call 911, what I tell my guys, when it's your worst day, that's when we're at our best. When you call 911 on your worst day, we come with the best. So again, the only thing holding up us, we have put hours and hours in this RFP. It's done. I told you 6 months ago that we needed to get a consultant, and it cost us about $120,000 to put that RFP together. We did it. We did it without the consultant. We got a great package, great delivery system. The only thing that's going to collapse it is if we can't find the seed money to get started, and that's basically where we're at. So I don't see all of the districts I know how much we've been out this summer. It's been unprecedented, and I don't see how the other districts would be able to secure that loan with not getting paid back till January and February. Yeah. That's just my 2 cents. Again, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, and then, in closing, I think what's sad is we're sort of looking this as individual fire departments, JPA. I'd rather look at it from a county perspective. Some of your best systems that are ran in the country are ran by the county. It's run by Third Service. They set up an EMS division, and they provide that service. And I wish we were looking at it from that perspective. Instead of 9 fire departments trying to do something, what we're really trying to do with the JPA is to have a county perspective. We all know, you're not going to get an argument from any of us up here. I mean, some people might be upset, but the bottom line is, if we had one fire department, it'd be a lot easier to do business. I'm just telling you. We know it's not going to happen. But we know as chiefs, we can make that happen. We know that we don't have the attitude of, each little piece of the pie. We look at it, we have multiple fire stations in the county, and we help each other out. And so, the goal would be that for this program to be functioned by a county program somehow with a county district or whatever to make that fly. I know it's hard with 9 different departments and stuff like that, and in the future, as we move forward, that might be the perspective that's going to be taken. I think, unfortunately, we're going to miss the window, and this contract will be 5 to 10 years. That probably puts all of us in retirement, probably, and who knows what you're going to get. But you have a very aggressive fire chief board right now that wants to do the best from a county approach. And you guys have known what the district approach has been for years. We know that at times we didn't go across people's borders. We didn't respond in other people's areas. We didn't help. And we've changed that dynamic drastically. What we're trying to do is not to put together a fire district program. We're trying to put together a county program that benefits the whole county of Calaveras. And I just wish there was a way that we could see a way to do that through some vision or forward thinking to set something up that it's ran that way where we could oversee that EMS program and get it started at the county level. But that's it. We're trying to work as one. We're not trying to work as 9 different fire districts, and I wish there was a way that we could do that. That being said, I appreciate all your information. At this point, I can honestly say I don't think there's a path forward probably, and it saddens me. It's going to sadden me to write a letter to Mountain Valley EMS to say that we're withdrawing after they've seen our plan and they know what we're going to do. It will sadden me to talk to any community member to say, man, we could have had an ambulance in your house in 5 minutes, and yeah, they'll be here in 45. Good luck. It's sad. I just think that there should be a way for us to figure out to put that product out there to where everybody wins, and it's a win for everybody in the county. And at this point, I think we're sort of at impasse, probably. So, if there's no further questions,
Do any supervisor?
This board on September 9th voted to lend the money, and it was put in the budget. So the board's already agreed to lend the money. There was a couple conditions that needed to be met. We've heard about the bond. One of the conditions that you couldn't meet. One of the other conditions was that the respective fire district boards signed off on it. Did you meet that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All 9
100%.
have signed off on it. So the only condition that you did not meet was the bond issue and securing the funds. So we've already voted, we've already approved a loan. The problem is they did not meet one of the items that we gave them as a condition for that loan. Now we're talking about completely different stuff. To me, one of the issues is whether if we voted for this and agreed on it, are we willing to find some other way to go forward without the condition of securing it, since it's already in the budget? I know what Sarah has said, I know what she read, I know what was being said, there's no avenue or whatever, but we've already done it. It's programmed in our budget. So I would like to find some way that we could work with them to some way we could possibly see this money secured. And as I'm listening to their presentation and the $1.5 million that they needed to begin with to buy ambulances and heart monitors and so forth, once that stuff is purchased, it becomes securities. Part of the problem why they can't get the bond is the JPA is the fact they have no securities. They have nothing as of yet. Just like any other company, I want to start a company tomorrow. I want to be a steel fabricator, but I don't have a shear, I don't have a brake, I don't have an iron worker, I don't have a truck to deliver anything, I don't have any welding machines. It's very tough for me to go out and get a loan because I don't have anything to secure it with. But once these items are purchased, I then have a viable way of providing security. It may be that once these items, and Rich, I need to have you discuss this with the lady that you discussed the bond with, and one of the conditions was that you had nothing to secure the money with. You're just a JPA with nothing. You have no securities at all.
Yeah,
Once this equipment is purchased, and then you do have some securities worth dollars, are they willing to bond you at that point?
Yeah, so Jocelyn wants to do anything she can to help us out. She wants to build a roadmap for success. But at the current time, what I had offered, and as I said, given her my financial statements, we look really healthy. But the bond companies didn't want to touch it because we were a public entity. They normally deal with private, but then she did talk a little bit about a performance bond, but at my net worth, it stalled the talks at that point. And I'll gladly share all of you the emails. I'm not trying to hide anything, and I don't want to pretend like he's just making this up, but to give you what Jocelyn gave me, because for her, obviously she's in it to make money, and she gave me about 2 days of work for free, basically explaining, where we were, where we are, and where we're trying to go. So it was a good education for me. But yes, I think that your analogy, what you're talking about is, and I appreciate you using steel fabricator. To start a business, you just have to have somebody give you an opportunity so we can buy our equipment, and then maybe that becomes a collateral. Those are things I can share with Jocelyn and see if we can move forward.
I think that's a discussion you need to have. I'm still unclear, though, of the concept of exactly, you want 2.5 million, whether you can use that in stages or not. Is that something that you, like Ben talked about,
Yeah.
whether you can do it till March and then after March?
Yeah, I do think that, doesn't have to be a lump sum. Obviously, when we start up, money's going to be spent in different ways. The reason why the 2.5, 2.6 was, we figured that would be our operating costs for the first 8 months. And we were conservative on that, asking for that because based on past history and tradition of how insurance companies pay their bills to a company that's just starting up, that process before they start collecting revenue could take anywhere from 6 to 8 months to get the revenue coming in. So we were conservative in the nature of, man, we might not have any money coming in from insurance companies for 8 months. So that's how that was built out. Now that doesn't mean we're going to use a company that has been providing that service for Ebbets Pass. Since they've already been doing that, I think we could be in the system quicker, and revenue could be coming in much quicker than the 8 months. So again, that's really that. I understand. I don't understand what the risk is. That's what I'd like. I understand we want to secure the money, but again, the 911 calls are going to happen no matter who provides the service. An ambulance company has to go out there no matter who they're providing the service, and the insurance companies has to pay. So it isn't like I'm developing a new product and we don't know if it's going to work or not. We know this is going to work. If we were a private company and I had this idea and we had the ability to get money, and I'd say I'm going to copy McDonald's exactly the same, and I'm going to put it in an area that doesn't have a McDonald's, and there's enough traffic going through there, a private investor would go, that's a great idea. There's no fast food out there, and you're at a four-way stop, but you're going to get all kinds of money. So they're going to invest in that. If you don't have a product that's good, then you might not get investment. But I don't understand the risk because we know the money's coming in. What's the risk of that money? I know for well-being, we want to make sure that's secure because we are accountable to our constituents and the county, but I just don't think there's a risk there. I don't know where the risk is. And I guess I would ask, well, what is the risk? What is the risk? I don't understand the risk. And I know that's what you're concerned about. I get it. But what's the risk? 911's going to happen. It's going to increase 3 to 6% a year. Ambulances have to go out there, and the insurance companies have to pay somebody. It's a tried and true model. It's going to come back in. So
Chief,
what's the concern?
The point is, Chief, that the code, there's a code that requires it, and that's all it is.
Sure.
It has nothing to do with anybody or anything. It's, the state has said very clearly, this is the only way we can do it. We don't have a whole lot of other latitude that we can play.
And
again,
that's as far as a loan, right?
But I think it can be worked out. I don't see this as being
Okay.
a done deal here.
Supervisor Toffenelli, do you want to continue?
Yeah, the next question I have is, given a letter that was written by ALA to Mountain Valley, saying that if they do not win the bid, they will seriously consider not providing service for the 90 days extension that was provided to start in March. Their contract legally ends on December 31st. So if that happens, where does that put you as being able to step in and start January 1st at midnight?
I didn't want to bring that up,
Well, it has to be brought
but I
up.
appreciate that. But I'm going to tell you why for a second. I think that's terrible, in my opinion. So they wrote a letter to the county and to Mountain Valley stating that if they do not get awarded it, they're going to pull out quicker than what they verbally agreed. I understand that there's no technical agreement, but they said in good faith at a Board of Supervisors meeting that they would continue to provide service. And that's interesting, because if I'm Mountain Valley and I'm looking at this and going, that's interesting. Is this the person I want running our county who now is putting pressure on me, basically to pick them, because if not, they're going to pull out and going to create a problem. I'll make one thing clear to you. I'll look you right in the eye right now. If I had to have 3 paramedic units in this county by 5 o'clock tonight, I would have 3 paramedic units in this county by 5 o'clock tonight. Okay? That's just how it works in the fire department. Period. So that 90-day requirement, if they decide to pull out, we'll have a program in place in 90 days. Guaranteed. Mr. Johnson over there, Chief Johnson, has extra ambulances that I could get right now in an hour. Copper has 3 ambulances sitting down there I can get in an hour. I can make one phone call to any provider that I know of in the state of California, anywhere around here. I could say, we're in a jam. These people are pulling out today. I need 3 ambulances and I need paramedics. And they would be up here by 5 o'clock tonight. So I would, if they decided to pull out early, Supervisor Toffenelli, I will have you a paramedic program running in 90 days in Calaveras.
Well, you would need it before 90 days because the bids will be awarded October 30th. You'd have 60 days, November and December, not 90.
I would do it in 60 days, 30 days, or 15 days. We would make that work. And again, I could do it by 5 o'clock tonight if I had to.
That's all the questions I had right now. Other than Rich, when I talked to you on the phone, you said you had some letters of support you were going to bring and read.
So we have 5, per the RFP, the requirement is we have to have 5 reference letters. I would rather not read those here.
Okay.
Because that's not good intent of me for the RFP, but I do have a letter from Assemblyman Bigelow.
Does he come with money?
Yeah. I have one from CCWD. I have one from our current sheriff. I have one from Mr. Warren from CHP. And I have one from East Bay Mud. So those are my letters. And they will go into the RFP that's submitted today. And then the other one I just want to say is a community member and being in the fire business for 40 years, as Chief Roboth says, it really bothers me that I can't get money to make the department and the districts better by a government code. It bothers me, but what really bothers me is that in a current RFP process, a private ambulance can make a threat like they made. And so it puts doubt looking from me to you in your eyes that, well, the one we have says that if they don't get it, they're gonna take their toys and go home. And so we really don't trust you guys on this side of getting it done because they're gonna pull out in 90 days. That's not that's not best practices. That's not a good a business plan. And if I was Mountain Valley, as Chief Roboth said, I'd be very concerned on that kind of attitude. Because basically, there is no equal opportunity. I'm sorry. You're basically telling Mountain Valley that either you pick me or we're taking our toys and going home. And I think with those words, I could take them to court. And I might be willing to do that on my own down the road. But again, it's about saving lives. So you're going to take your toys home and maybe not have a service, and that's the way you're going to win the contract? It's very disappointing to me to hear those comments. You know, I think that's very unprofessional, very unacceptable, and that dialogue should not be allowed anywhere in Calaveras County or Mountain Valley. As one of your chiefs, I wouldn't do that.
Mr. Stopper?
And again, another good comment, that's how this process got started. I have the article from the paper. Correct me, ALA had an opportunity to bid on the last RFP. They chose not to. They chose not to, and that's why we're standing before you. And now they're going to take their toys and go home if they don't get the contract. We'll put a story together after. It's going to be a good story. You know, hopefully it'll be a good story. If not, it's still going to be a very interesting story.
And just on the reference letters, so you know, I sent an email out, and I had 26 responses within 24 hours. So we picked and chose the letters that we put in, but I haven't seen anybody that's not willing to support us. So it's very nice.
Mr. Stopper?
I want to thank Rich for forwarding me those letters from Jocelyn. I read through them quite extensively just on how the bonds apply and everything, you know, and I think Supervisor Mills, not to be argumentative, but I think you misspoke a little bit when you're saying it's required by code. The bond is not required by code for security. So the reason I'm bringing this up this way is the reason I suggested, you know, the route of each district taking the money at 85% of what the assessed tax value is. When they put a law together like that, that is the surety, is it's at 85% of the assessed tax value. You know, that's my perception on why the law was written that way. And personally, where I sit, if we can make these numbers work through that course, I personally would be willing to forego the security. And that's where I sit right now. You know, we go down the route with the money that I've talked about. I could be supportive foregoing the security as
No security.
no security, because that's what the security is with that type of loan, is it's at 85% of the assessed tax.
But if it's at no security, that means the fire districts do not, they get it without being secured at 85%.
Right. Sure.
So what does the 85% have to do with it? I'm missing that.
I think Supervisor Callaway, if I may, I have not researched the legislative history of Section 23010, but I suspect that the cap is, if you're loaning a fire district or any other special district funds capped at only 85% of their property tax revenue for that fiscal year, I would imagine the idea is that they should be able to pay it back because they're getting that property tax revenue. And so even if, in this case, even if they weren't then entering into a contract which would provide revenue, the idea is that they would have sufficient property tax revenue to be able to pay the county back.
But we're saying that they don't have to, we would be doing it unsecured. So then, if we loan them the money, then
Right.
that doesn't apply. We're not in first position, as Supervisor Garamendi referred to earlier. So what I heard Mr. Stopper say is, let's lend the money unsecured.
No,
Right,
I
so-
said what
With-
Sarah did at the same time, just not the security that you're requiring before, because the security is seen as 85% of the assessed tax value for one fiscal year, assuming that you would be able to pay it back with 100% assessed taxes.
If I
Mr.
may,
Gay.
Madam Chair, I'm trying to figure out what the confusion is about the language that says the loan must be repaid prior to any other obligation. It says must,
I know.
so I'm not quite sure why we think that it would be an unsecured loan. By this government code, it appears to me that we are the first.
Correct. They would be mandated by law to pay us back first. So
Thank you.
that's, I guess, how it would be guaranteed, as it were.
So then a fire district,
Glad to see we
Would-
agree on something today, Jack.
so then a fire district would have to be willing to accept the loan, understanding that. And if they don't want to, then the money would not go to that fire district.
That's, yes, Madam Chair, and my understanding is that the way this is typically effectuated is via a resolution of Board of Supervisors and then a resolution of the governing board of whichever special district is accepting the money, stating that it's being done pursuant to this statutory scheme and they're accepting those conditions.
I guess I'm missing something in this equation. But if they accept the money, they're accepting the fact that they will be paying us back.
Correct.
Now, that's, to me, secured, or no different than what the bond was. And then the chiefs are saying we would like this loan unsecured.
I think we might just all be using different terms. I guess I would say it's.
I think, may
Karen-
I, Sarah?
Please.
They're asking to not have to secure it with a bond or insurance. In all sense, I think I provided a plausible different course that is secured, not through a bond or insurance. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you, Ms. Calloway?
I followed the whole thing all along. I'm not sure where Marita's saying. It's very clear. It's very clear. And they would need their JPA boards to agree to each one of those districts and pass a resolution accepting that money.
And if they choose not to, because they are operating on shoestrings now, then the money doesn't go to them. And therefore, the
If they
money
don't,
does
they
not,
don't.
but then the money does not go to the JPA.
Pretty sure they would.
I guess, I need to, I don't want to just speak before the Ebbets Pass fire chief does, because he might not respond when I need him. But I guess,
I think there's probably a lot of as I'm sitting here listening, and this is the first time I've heard this particular option. So there's probably quite a few multifaceted things that, our talented, Miss Edwards is probably can figure out for us. But so if I understand it correctly, we can loan up to 85% of our net worth collectively, however many districts would participate in, hopefully all of them, right? So if we did that, we would loan kind of like the Teeter Fund, right? So we could loan or borrow up to the set amount as long as it was under the 85% cap. but we'd be paying it back first, just like when, I'm guessing, as a layman, when we borrow from the treasury during the dry period, if we go into that drawdown, as soon as our taxation money comes, right, the first pay at that point in a typical fiscal year is we pay back everything we loaned from the treasury, and then after that it goes into what we would call the reserve, or however we work our books, right? So this would be kind of a brand new layer that would be the new first, that would be a loan and drawdown up to 85% probably. I guess there'd be a lot of details in how quickly that first payment would be, how much we would draw down the 85%, and we would have to all have our books, or if you will, be able to float that first chunk of whatever the numbers would be there in that time. I guess at least I'm looking into it quite a bit, just trying to digest it. But those are a lot of things that, of course, would have to be worked out on the details. I know Chief Robah's super talented in all ways for those types of things. So, I mean, it'd have to be looked into, but I think that's what I'm at least understanding.
I concur. It's and it's like I said earlier, we're trying to turn ourselves into pretzels to try and make this work for you, and that's the only clear path that I can see right now from talking with council, talking with other people, that we can stay legitimate. Because look, we all want to do the best thing, but at the same time, we keep our hands clean as we move forward, because it's going to hurt us worse later if we don't do it that way. So that's just where I'm at. Sorry, Gary.
Being that this is going to be repaid, it's up to 85%, and what their tax revenue is, it doesn't speak anywhere in there about interest. Would that be what the basic ordinance that we have in loaning money to another public agency? Or is there something I'm missing here, because it does not speak of repaying with the interest?
You're right, Supervisor Tofinelli, I do not, so I believe it's going to be the same as, here, let me just pull it. The district shall pay interest on all funds borrowed from the county at the same rate that the county applies to funds of the district on deposit with the county.
You understand that?
That would be the interest rate.
Mr. Mills?
Yeah, I see us as kind of running down a different road, so to speak, from what the original discussion was. But the money has been set aside in our budget, so therefore I would support a loan to the districts. It doesn't have to be all 9, as long as you cumulatively can come up with enough districts with enough of their tax revenue to get to that 85 percentile, and within the boundaries of 23010 as a government code. I think that from there, it's up to the staff to work out the details with you as to how to make it work. That's where I'm at.
For me, I think you're absolutely right. This is very forward-looking. It's a risk. It's a good investment. And all those things that you talked about. I mean, how do you compete with people dying? I mean, that's the other side of the coin, though, is Mr. Garamendi started out with, that there's still a business decision on the board's part. And if I make an investment, I do it as Marita Callaway, but this isn't Marita Callaway's money. This is the taxpayers of Calaveras who pay into it to pay for services. So the sheriff could say, yes, I really support this, but if the county is not repaid and we cut services, then we're going to be cutting the sheriff, or we're going to be cutting the recorder's office, so you can't record documents. And I think that's where, for me, it's what is the guarantee, why I supported a bond or some mechanism of repaying it. What is it so it doesn't impact the services that we are chartered to provide? And So for me, that's kind of been where the dilemma is. I can't argue against responding in 10 minutes or 30 minutes. You're the experts at that. I don't want to have to cut the services or look at it when we go into budget this coming year, that we have guaranteed X amount of dollars that we have to account for, and then cut services because we've chosen to do that. I think we needed that return, guaranteed return. So those were my thoughts. Mr. Garamendi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't even think we've gotten to the business conversation yet. It's a whole nother ball of wax. Supervisor Toffenelli referred to where the funds were. That's step 2. Step 1 is we have determined that we cannot legally do the loan that was proposed before. We have had alternatives put forward that each of the fire districts could sign off and secure the loan. In your earlier presentation, you didn't think that that was likely to happen. So I really feel like we've been wasting people's time here. But I want to know, would your 3 fire districts, you know your board pretty well, guesstimate, are they going to sign off on this loan? Secure it? It's okay, you can give a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's kind of a binary question, Chief.
Well, yeah, with all due respect, there's a lot more to it, especially for the east zone of Nevis Pass. I mean, I'd be certainly asking my board in our area, we're the east zone provider. We'd be putting up a taxation collateral essentially to fund the operation in the north and south zone of the ambulance zone. And while I've been a part of this fine group here and working with them tremendously on everything that we've put together as an ALS program there to duplicate or mimic or even clone, if you will, what it could look like for the JPA. I can say without going to my board, we know the support's there through resolution to put in an RFP as a JPA partner. We did that. But I would talk to them in depth about what that means. And there's a lot of associated things that come along with this JPA model for our agency. And I'd have to put it to our elected body as to whether or not a taxation, collateral would be something that they would be willing to do. So I couldn't tell you with just as the introduction earlier, hearing it for the first time, as to where that would be. All I can say is we're all in to see success of the north and south zone, regardless of who that is. And if it's the JPA folks, I told them time and time again, we are all into anything that we've done up there that could work somewhere else is there. So, but this would be a new ask for our elected body.
You run a great program up there, Chief, but, obviously this is not a slam dunk. Chief Richardson says slam dunk. Chief Roybal, slam dunk. So not a slam dunk.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate Rich's view. He's got a great relationship with this board right now, and they've been willing to really step up for this program. So it would be a tough ask, I think, for all of the jurisdictions. We would obviously have we are under the gun for, and it's sad to me that the time is what it is based on how the process got going late. I wish we'd had a couple of years to work this out, because I firmly believe that all of us in this room would have been able to work out a very successful model. With that being said, I don't know what the other districts will say, and I would probably venture the same tone as Chief Johnson, that they'd have to evaluate it too as well. And time is tough right now. Time is going to be hard because, I really think that I have to do an oral presentation at Mountain Valley EMS on October the 30th. That's our final time to meet with them. And when I go in there, I'm going to sell our product big time. We have to figure it out by then, because I don't want to go into there, sell the product, and like I said earlier, it would be bad for all of us. Could you imagine? We win the RFP, and then I have to tell them we have no way to fund it. That's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for everybody, and I don't want to go through that. I want that to happen. So for October 30th, for me, it's either going to be a withdrawal. If thank you. It'd be a nice thank you for allowing us to participate. After further developments, we're not able to continue on, or we're going to move forward. And that's a short timeline to get a JPA meeting. I'm sure we're going to have to do presentations to every board to get them to buy in, because they're going to have some of the same questions about risk to that money and how that works. So it's going to be tough. We'll continue to move forward. And then I would say, I don't know if there's a way that we could have a working group meeting where we can all float some stuff out before a final meeting on stuff. But we'll just continue to move forward with the option that has been brought. I think it's a possibility. I appreciate the willingness to try to come up with something, and we'll just move forward with that and see how it goes. Obviously, and then we'll go from there. I think I understand the point at this point. I mean, I don't know how it works, but it sounds like we're willing to do it. This is the current way that the board's willing to do it, and if we can figure that out, then we'll be continuing on in the process. I mean, that's probably the way that I see it. So,
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the board of the JPA or Ms. Edwards? Okay.
Sorry, so are you suggesting that we change the agreement we currently have, or what's our action here, Madam Chair?
Well,
Tell me what we're doing.
It's an action item. The agenda said action. I didn't realize, I thought it was information only. So we can entertain a motion to, right. We can entertain a motion that we can send the CA all back, that the understanding is that we cannot loan the money unsecured. We can't loan the money, period, to the JPA, but we can do it to the fire districts. Would the board be willing to pursue that? And probably with the understanding that it would be unsecured.
Madam Chair,
Except-
when we did this before, the business question was attached to this motion. Are you proposing that we change the business proposition, i.e. where the money comes from as
No,
well?
I'm not
So
proposing-
it's just
no.
dealing with that one question?
That's correct,
Okay.
unless the board has any other comments on that. Okay, thank you. No, not where it's coming from. Are there any other public comments on this? Or, excuse me, are there any public comments on this item? Ms. Glanville? Okay, I'm opening it up on, is there a motion on the board? Or there is no motion, then,
Well, I have to rethink it because I'm not necessarily on the same page that you just proposed it as.
then you can make a motion as you see.
I would make a motion, that we'll change it so that the bond or the insurance is not needed, that the money would get loaned to the fire districts, and that the discussion in the future needs to be on where does that money come from when we get to that point. It's, as opposed to the way it was originally proposed of where that money was coming from. That would be my motion.
So those are three different things that you
They're
want
all
on.
three things stacked into my motion, Marita.
All right.
Yes.
All right, is there a second on the,
Well, I want to clarify his motion just a little bit when he says going to the fire districts. Should there not be a stipulation based on that their boards pass a resolution accepting that money? Because it's part of what the code says, that they have their board.
Right.
So that's all part of the motion.
Yeah,
based on
is
that.
part of it. Yeah, and if you don't get one smaller fire district to buy in, then the other 8 could take it. as long as it fell within the confines of the way the law states we can loan it.
And whatever amount of money that comes out to be, whether it's combined, whatever they have. And that will come back to us, and that's what you're talking about, the source of the money. I just want to clarify that, so I'm sure what we're speaking of.
Yes.
Okay, I will second.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
For clarification, Supervisor Stopper suggested that we have a motion that we're modifying, an action that this board took, and we're changing a lot of parts to it. One of the parts that we have not changed, but we're leaving in your motion, is that we will come back and talk about where the money's coming from.
That's his motion, and that's
that
how
would
he
be-
wants
And
it.
so how can we, it's kind of murky, isn't
Well,
it?
It was for me, but that's what Mr. Stopper wanted, and that's what
Well,
Mr. Tupper
we could sit down and discuss it right now, but I think that would bring it to another vote. When we get forward to changing that, that would be a 4-1 vote if we changed where it came from at that time. At this time, we're on a 3-2 vote on whether we're going to change, the requirement for the bond and everything else. Am I correct, Ms. Edwards? 'Cause we're going to have to bring part of this back.
Well, yes, something's going to have to come back to the board, or multiple actions are going to have to come back to the board, no matter what. Should the board choose to loan money to one or more specific fire districts pursuant to Government Code Section 23010, that will require a resolution, a future resolution of the board by a majority vote to loan that particular fire district money pursuant to that statutory scheme. To the extent those monies are going to come from anywhere other than where they were previously budgeted during the budget process, that will require a 4/5 vote of the board at a future meeting.
Madam,
If it was changed.
Correct.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
If I can ask, Madam Chair, we did this original act under the
Right.
budget,
Correct.
right? It was all one package question. Now we're changing something that we did with a majority vote in the budget. I would question whether we could break these things into two, or are we making one budget issue, in which case it's going to be a 4/5 vote. I'm a little confused because we're breaking up a single action into two items, and I would guess that in order to do that, you're going to need 4/5 because it is a budget item. Even though they're two separate questions, they were put together in one motion.
Would you like to reconsider? Or no?
No, I would not like to reconsider.
Okay.
And I think Sarah already answered that question, because it's going to have
Right.
to come back in multiple.
Okay, Mr. Mills, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, unless there's other issues at hand here, I'd call for the vote.
Okay. I'm not going to be voting for this. I would vote for it in terms of omitting the the bonding requirement, having the funding go to the fire districts with their support. I do not support opening up where the monies come from. So based on that, which is an integral part of this, I will be voting no. I'm called for the vote. All in favor, as Supervisor Stopper and Supervisor Tuffanelli did a first and a second.
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No. Passes on a 3-2 vote of the board, with Supervisor Garamendi and Supervisor Callaway in opposition. Thank you. If there's no further discussion, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day. Call me. I got something.
It's going to be stretched.